Okay, good afternoon, friends. So today we'll have a very fast overview of this arbitration, which was also spoken by our adjunct faculty, and because basically I would like to just add a few of my own thoughts also, and we are going to see the measurement of works, and what are the things we normally check, or what is this checking, and the bills, because payment is only against bill. You have to raise a bill if you are a contractor, and if you are a owner, you are honor bound to honor the bills. What if a client is giving you a bill, you have to pay it. Okay. Basically, if suppose you don't pay the bill, or if suppose you're withholding money, you should have some very good reasons, because you should not get into the trap of getting into an arbitration. Okay, just as how as an owner you can probably have a lot of hold on the contractor, do not give a chance to the contractor to have a hold on you. So in the last class we were looking at we looked at a tender document, and in a tender document these are the points which you see: the items of work, what is the material you are using, what is the method you are going to do the construction. For example, many of the tender documents will also include a detailed specification as to how to do the brickwork. They will not just say refer relevant codes, they will tell the method of doing it. Then they will tell the degree of supervision. It means that if suppose a particular work is being done, for example, the work which will be hidden, foundation, you make a foundation, you cover it with soil, nobody knows what has gone in. So such items are going to be measured more carefully, and there will be a testing criteria and also an acceptance criteria. See, for instance, if you have gone to any of the sites on an internship, you would have noticed that for every pour of concrete they will start to make cubes. Yes, please. It's in gallery 1. They have shifted it to gallery 1. We had booked this earlier. Yes. Okay, sir. So yeah. So they have they'll say for this many meter cube of concrete which you pour, so many test samples have to be taken. So this is what we call as an acceptance criteria. See, what happens is, in the unlikely event that your column is expressing distress, a beam is showing distress in service or just before they hand over, then they will say, then the problem comes: who's at fault? Is it the design fault, or is it the fault of the material? So when you are having the whenever you are having the pour card and the testing thing which you have done, test results, then the liability shifts from the site to the design office. Okay, so these are all some of the things, like what is the testing criteria, what is the acceptance criteria. Usually if you are looking at a very big contract like an EPC contract, they'll say that for instance, a power plant or a coal handling system. The coal handling system, if it is rated 1000 tons per hour, they'll say that maximum of 5% variation is acceptable. So if suppose it's within that 5% where it underperforms, then you are not going to be penalized. However, sometimes it can be very stringent also. So then, if suppose you have done something and your whatever work you have delivered is not performing, what is the remedy? Like how much penalty you are going to pay, or what are you going to do to make up for the loss which the buyer is suffering? So these are some of the things which you go, and these are some of the terms of the contract which we also saw. Okay, so if you have any doubt in any of these terms, you can ask me now. Right. So I guess you don't have any doubt in any of these terms. Hey, the last three of you, what's happening here? This is not that class. This is the BTech construction class, construction management class. Gallery 1, please go to gallery 1. Yeah. Poor fellows, they were having such an argument as to what was the class about. Anyway, any other persons are here who are not of the building construction materials management class? I am myself getting confused. Right. So here we go to arbitration. Okay, arbitration is dispute resolution. You have a mediation. Two friends will try to go and tell mutual friends, please don't fight. If you both are fighting about something, like one person says you have not done the work, another person says, the other person says, no, I not only done the work, I have done much more than what is required. So this is where this mediation comes. I'll give you an example of what happened yesterday. We are trying to upgrade the equipment in the concrete lab, structures lab. So we had a vendor who had come. So there was a lot of negotiation. We were talking, why don't you give this also? Then why don't you take this frame? Because we don't have any use for it. So please buy back the frame. So he was giving his points and stuff like that. So now what happens is, then slowly is coming out, sir, if suppose you go with these terms, we can probably even put something extra. He was actually telling, sir, in some other places, we were able to give an additional 10-ton jack, some other accessories free. So you see, these are, during the negotiations, these come out. Now, suppose we go with this vendor and then something happens. He is not giving you the 10-ton jack which he promised you, then you are not happy with the thing which you have got. So what would happen is, in such a case, we will have a mediation done between parties who know both of them. So they try to settle it without any problem. It's only between you and me. If it doesn't happen, then you have to go for an arbitration. Arbitration means you will have 3 parties involved, 2 who are aggrieved, and the third is the middleman. Okay. So the middleman tries to see how we can sort out the dispute. Okay. So this is the thing. Now it's out of court. There is no lawyer's fee. There is no arbitration. See, for doing the arbitration itself, there will be a consultancy charge. So that's not there. And also now both of you are friends. You both have managed to do the patch up the dispute. Nobody knows what happens. Okay. On this note, I got a lighter thing which I thought just came to my mind. See, they say the first year of marriage I spoke, she listened. Second year of marriage she spoke and I listened. Now third year of marriage we both speak and our neighbors listen. So before that sort of a situation comes, what happens? Both the parties have resolved their dispute. So this is entirely voluntary. It's not binding. Okay. I'm sure you remember the story which is here. I used this slide in the last class also, in the last year time which I took also. So these two cats are fighting over the piece of cake, and who gets the whole thing? The monkey. So if you are going to have, like if you stay out of the court, then you are more likely to win. Okay. So tribunals, 3 people are involved. So we got international agencies which are there for arbitration. We got a court in London, and we got Singapore has International Arbitration Center. The other one is the court in London, which is like more of a legal framework. Okay, so this is the normal route of an arbitration. First you file an arbitration, then you go for a scrutiny of what the arbitration is about. So the panel will see it is registered. Then they summon both the parties to a common place, and all the other things are coming. And this judgment which is given is binding on the parties. Okay. So you got 2 things, ad hoc and institutional. So you go to something like the International Court of Arbitration or something, or you can yourself just set up a arbitration framework. Please remember in that tender which we saw in the last class, that person, the owner says, I will call 3 people, you choose any one of them, and then we will have a mutual discussion at a place which is convenient to us. Okay. So now what happens is, do you know the number of court cases which are pending? In the last week's paper there was a joke, there was a discussion or whatever. So the one judge was saying, Modi or Prime Minister had told that judges should not take that long a vacation, and the judge was saying 3 weeks of the vacation I write the judgment. That's the only time I get to write my judgment. So you see what happens is, this is the state of affairs in our country. If you go to court 10 years or 15 years, after 10 years or 15 years your case will come, and by the time you get one, you just put one appeal or 2, one party doesn't turn up, so all of this will keep on getting an adjournment. End of the day you will not get any justice. And also the courts prefer that you go for an arbitration or out of court, settlement. Okay, so the ad hoc means it's very flexible. Okay, and it might not be very efficient, but you can choose many things. However, hey, again guys, those of you who come for the MTech class or what was the workshop, it's conducted in Gallery 1. Okay, Gallery 1. Right. And if you are going for something like, you know, a court appointed arbitration or stuff like that, then it doesn't become, it's not private. When I say it's not private, if a press agent gets hold of it, he is going to publicize it. So normally what happens is your stock is going to get affected. The value of your stock is going to get affected and all such things happen. Okay. So these are some of the benefits of arbitration. I am not going to go through it for too long. Right. So these are some of the usual people who come in for arbitration. Okay. So now we'll go. Okay. Regarding arbitration, do you have any questions? 3 people are involved, so it's called a tribunal. Okay. And see, even sometimes this labor issues are sorted out by tribunals. So it need not be with a court, but if you are going for an institutional type of arbitration, it's quite probable that you are going to spend a lot of money. Okay.
What percentage of arbitration take, like amount?
Arbitrators. That depends on the nature of arbitration and to whom you are going for arbitration. See, somebody who is just coming into this, they may not want to have a huge margin. So probably that arbitration might be done at a much cheaper rate.
Like say in PWD, it will be the superintendent engineer.
No. If suppose you are doing for PWD agents will not be the arbitrators. They will not be the arbitrators. There will be a third party who is neutral. That person will only be the arbitrator.
The superintendent engineer will be the arbitrator.
See, if suppose you are going to, if suppose 2 parties are fighting and they are getting the PWD to do the arbitration, then probably yes. But within, if suppose you are a contractor and you are going to say to the person, look, I am having something against you, 2 PWD people, then PWD people will not be there in the tribunal. They are one of the other, you know, like the parties which are having something against the thing. Na?
So who decides the arbitrator?
Both parties. See, please remember that tender document which we gave. In that, if you see here are told, I am going to give 3 parties. You choose. So depending on the type of the NIT document, all this is fixed. So if suppose it's an international tender, and then all that, it starts to get more difficult. What do we say is international? When we cross political boundaries, then it becomes international. Usually what is the problem in an international tender? The choice of laws is very different. Just think of Vodafone case, that will give you a very good idea. Vodafone has a different intention to come to India, to make profit. Everybody wants to make profit. Okay, so now after they came here, the choice of the law, which they couldn't understand the law probably very well. India is very flexible in its moralities. So when it comes to the crux, they are finding it difficult to do business. Keynes Energy is another group of people who are, you know, like threatening to pull out. Quite a lot of pharma industries have gone out of India. That is, they came, set up their plant, then they saw that we are very good, you know. We take all their intellectual property and then we do a cheaper alternative of the drug. So these are, you know, like these are some of the things. The international, see, even in today's paper, US companies are saying we cannot make in India at the cost of intellectual property rights. So the rules in India is different, and the ones in America is so much more different. So this is what happens when you go across the geographical boundary to do business. Okay. So see, typically this is the project chain. You have to identify what is the job which is to be done. You issue a notice inviting tender. Then the entire tendering process is there. You come to an agreement. Now, this contract agreement, once it is finalized, it's signed, you get an LOI. This is common in all the in any business. Wherever you go, be it an IT company, be it a place like L&T or any other company, if you are outsourcing a work, you will also issue an LOI. LOI is letter of intent. Okay, I am going to do a work, I am giving it to you, this is what I expect of you, these are the delivery timelines, these are the payment terms. So you sign, the other party signs. Gallery 1, please go to gallery 1. Terrible, no? Right. So yeah, so this is called LOI. Once the LOI is signed, then only usually procurement starts. It means that if you start to procure something before the LOI is signed, you are a fool, because they can just say no, how can you do it. Then once the work is done, you raise a bill, okay, and the last one is the most important in a project. It's the close out. Once you close out a contract, then only you have got the full money, the liability is very less. Please go to gallery 1 if you are not part of this class. Construction management. Okay, please sit. I'm sorry, it's because so many people are walking in and I'm terribly sorry. Did I chase him out or what? He's not part of this class, right? I thought I was a little familiar at least. Okay. These people are making it very interesting today. You know, the class is more lively today than ever before. Okay. Now coming back here, this is something about measurement of works. So whatever you do, you will have a way to measure it. Okay. So there are many things which are standardized. Please look at the IS 1200 series, which gives you the way you have to measure. This is a standard. So brick wall, light partition, meter square, but brick wall, anything beyond that you measure in meter cube. Concrete you measure in meter cube. So certain tiles you measure in meter square, certain kind of tiles you measure in running meter, and also sometimes in numbers. Okay. And sometimes, you know, the painting which you do, it might be much more than the surface which you are painting. Okay. And all these sort of things you will determine in the first instance itself. For instance, you are having excavation or backfill. Okay, if you are having backfill, they can measure it in two ways. They can say what is the actual backfill which you have done, or what is the volume of material you have taken from the burrow pit. So the logic is whatever you take out from the burrow pit, that's what is going to be filled. So all these things are fixed in the NIT itself. Both of these methods are accepted by our government, I mean by our Indian standards. So you need to understand and you need to fix. You cannot tell, sir, I am going to measure this in meter square because I think it's more easy to measure in meter square, not in meter cube. That will not be accepted at any point of time. So what you decide in the beginning, that is what is done, and wastage is normally not included. See, for instance, if you take a steel column, have you seen the base of the column? There will be a gusset. There will be one with a splay. Okay, you can just go to the this one, that high mast which we have, the flag post which we have, you will find at the bottom some gussets. So these gussets are they have a sort of a rectangle with a splay. So when you are measuring, you will not you would not be able to actually make that splay just like that. You would have taken a rectangular piece of sheet and cut the splay. For you, the way you measure is only the splayed portion. Okay, so this is the thing which you deliver inside. Wastage which is there is not counted. Another thing is, if you are taking reinforcing rod, okay, your reinforcing rod is 16 meters long, but then the length which you require is say 13 meters long. 3 meter long piece, you cannot do anything literally, because if suppose it's a large diameter rod, the development length which you require itself will consume most of the bar. So that is all scrapped. So now what happens is, so if suppose you say, sir, I procured so many tons, you please pay me for that, that is not valid. What you put into the building, that is what you are going to get paid for under normal circumstances. In some cases, the contractor will have the benefit from the owner who says, you buy it, I will pay you at actions, but that's not a very common thing, because then the contractor may try to increase his wastage and therefore get more money. Okay. So this is the need to measure works. First and foremost, whenever you buy a thing in the market, what do you get? You get a bill stating the material and the quantities. For example, 5 bars of soap. You go a little more, probably they will say what is the brand of soap which you are using 5 kgs of sugar. So you measure it and also you specify what is there. So first and foremost you need to validate what has been sold. So for instance, if you are going to say I have done fabricated and erected 100 tons of steel in the last month. So somebody has to check and tell that it has actually been done. And if suppose it is a contract where you supply material, has that material got supplied? So that's all being verified. So the other things you just go through. I don't know, suppose you really require any other help, right? I'll just point out to this record expenditures for future benchmarks. What does this mean? See, in any company you go, you will never have at the day one, that is on the day you tender, you will never have quantities, because you will not have time for doing a detailed design and then say that this is the quantity which is required. Okay. So what happens if suppose you are having a 500 megawatt power plant coming up, or 3 into 210 or something like that. We would have done so many coal handling plans for that. So we will know, okay, probably it will require 750 tons per hour of conveyor belt, and it would require, because it's a power plant, it will always be a double stream conveyor. So all this you know from your experience. Once you know that, then you go a little more deeper. NTPC, okay, NTPC has height restrictions, or they will require this height of junction house, because the plant layout looks like this. So we will have thumb rules. So per running meter, what should be the weight which we take? How did we get it? Because we have already got the weights with us. Okay. So if you are going into the site, if you are doing a particular kind of work, always note how much concrete you are using. Okay. So for so many square meters, this many meter cube was, so many meter cube per meter square, you can just get a thumb rule. So next day when somebody is asking you, sir, I want to do a building, what is the size of the floor area? Immediately you say, and how many floors are there? Immediately you can just multiply with your coefficient and get the concrete quantity. Same thing, you would have done 10 5-story buildings. Okay, when you have done 10 5-story buildings, you know how much steel has been consumed for the volume of concrete which you have poured. You have to go to gallery 1, please. Your class is in gallery 1. So you know how much steel you have used. So we've got a thumb rule, so many kgs per meter cube. Okay, typically for without any ductile detailing, it's around 100 kg per meter cube. So ductile detailing comes into picture maybe 130. If you're going to have crack width and all that, it will slightly increase, because what happens, you have to provide more steel at closer spacing for preventing cracks. Okay. So this is a very important thing. You need to have a record of what work you have done. Then you can relate an apple to apple comparison. So 5-story building, this much will be the quantity of steel, this will be the concrete quantity, finishes would approximately come to so much. Okay. So now if you go to site, this is something you try to do. How much of tiles is going to come approximately? Once you know all that, or the floor is straightforward, other things you just need to have a thumb rule. Once you have the thumb rule, you can just get the cost and tell. Okay, so this is one of the things which we do. Is there any other point you'd like me to this one tell more? Right. So you will be putting all of the work in a M book or a measurement book. All the work is normally put inside a measurement book. Okay. So these are some of the things which, this is taken straight from the CPWD manual of works. This has been fully taken only from the CPWD manual of works. And yeah, if you have any question, you can ask. So typically you would have found something like this in your surveying also. Okay, if you are looking at survey, you would have found that these points are also put. And if you lose your M book or measurement book, this is what you are going to do. You have to go and report it to police, and then all the other blah 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 which is there. Nowadays, CPWD insists on computerized measurement books. Okay, so just imagine today when you go to a site, it may be quite possible that they will encourage you to buy a nice mobile and then make all your entries directly into that. It's quite possible. Okay. So yeah, this is from clause 7.5 of 2014 edition of CPWD manual of work. So, do you have any, these are very straightforward points, okay. If you have any doubt, please ask. It's just what you see there, okay. And these are the things which they are wanting you to record. And if suppose there is something which is of very high value, okay, if there is a high value material, for instance, if suppose you are going to use very good quality of fixtures, then you have to be you should be doubly careful about ensuring that it is done. And then there are also many things which cannot be subsequently measured. We have already spoken about it. We've given the example of the foundation. There might be other things also which we will conceal, okay. So all these things you will have to have a very good check done, okay.
So if there is an error, we can't.
Yes, if suppose there is an error, you can't check it again. That is one thing, but mostly they are not worried about that error. If you have changed the specification, instead of M25, you have given only M15 concrete in foundation.
No,
Or-
if there is an error, we can't overwrite it or like.
Yes. If you are in one of the points earlier, it was there. You cannot erase, you cannot deface a value of an entry in an M book. You cannot strike it, like, make it as if you can't read. Make one single line, make the correction in red, and then you
And sir, who
leave it.
reports the handbook, like junior engineer or?
Yeah, usually typically the junior engineer goes, hey, I will tell you what, you please guys go through the CPWD manual of works. Go through it, okay. It's just like a story. All the things which you are talking about is directly taken from that. Okay. Now, yeah, here it is. This is what it's there. If that's the point which you are talking about. Okay. So these are the types of bills. These are the types of bills which we have. See, if you are having a job, a very small job, okay, there will be only one bill which you will be allowed to raise. It will be full and final. For instance, if suppose you are supplying backfill soil, okay, so you would have told, okay, I am going to provide 5000 meter cube of earth. So what would happen is, this might be a very small number when you are looking at the contract itself. So at that time, what you do, you just raise one bill. It will be full and final. Just one bill is done. But then there is this running bill. Okay, for instance, if suppose you are going to take supply of fine aggregate from the riverbed, it's an ongoing thing. Right up to the plastering, you will require this fine aggregate. Okay, so what we will do is, every month, based on what you supply, they will be giving your classes in gallery 1, please. Okay, so based on the amount you supply, they'll keep on increasing they'll be keeping the payment. So that's called running bills. And of course, you may get a part rate of what you are supplying, because they won't give you the entire thing at the onset. So you will get a small portion of the you have to go to gallery 1 year. This is construction management class, right? Okay, and then if they give you some supplies, whatever you pay for the supplies is this payment for supplies. Then there are some petty things, okay, like for example, supply of coffee, tea, okay, or just labor. The laborers would have come and they would have done the work. So what you will do is, you will give a voucher. Usually there will be limits. Up to this much amount, you can go for a voucher payment. For instance, in VAT, I think it's around 2,000 rupees. So, sorry, 5,000, huh? Yeah, you guys are better at VAT rules here. So, up to 5,000 rupees, if suppose a payment is being done, you give a voucher. And sometimes they will say, above a particular value, you have to get it on a revenue stamp, right? So, this is what we mean by voucher payment. It's not, you just give the money and then you get a voucher and then it goes for accounting. Okay, so this is something about the types of bills that you can raise. I want you to please go through the CPWD manual of works for the complete details. Okay, so with this I'll stop this lecture.